everything seemed to be going along all right, and then production started to drop off and pasture grass started to drop off. And then in the early 80s we had the flood and things started to go backwards altogether, and we suddenly started to realise that it was an underlying problem in the area. We didn't know quite what it was. We were totally ignorant of the fact then that there could be a high water table and salting was affecting the pastures.
These are some of the products of irrigated agriculture, from orchards, vineyards and dairy farms. We can have them in our shops, our supermarkets, whenever we want them. No worries. This is a typical scene of intensive farming in an irrigation area. When we see this, we take it for granted that irrigation is an assurance of an excellent crop each year. No worries. Water certainly makes a major difference. You can see it in the contrast between this irrigated orchard and its neighbouring dryland. In urban communities, irrigation is still seen as a matter of splashing water on plants to keep them green, a sort of lawn sprinkler attitude. But the reality is that to farmers, irrigation water is a valuable resource that has to be carefully managed to receive the benefits it offers. The introduction of irrigation aims at providing optimum conditions for growth, but they can also create major salinity problems. Let's examine how this can happen. Before white settlement, the country was largely covered by woodlands. Rainfall on the woodlands supported the vegetation. While some of this rainfall was used by the vegetation, some found its way into the water table. With settlement came the clearing of land to grow crops and pastures. Where irrigation was used, water from the irrigation channels entered into the ground by seepage. In some soils, irrigation water infiltrated below the root zone of the crop, and drainage water collected at the bottom of the paddock. Added to this, rainfall continued to contribute to the water table. The resulting water table led to soil salinity, especially on lower ground. Soil salinity can develop when the water table is less than 2 meters from the surface, as the salts can rise with water drawn from the water table through pores in the soil. At the surface, energy from the sun evaporates the moisture. This leaves the salts behind. The result is soil salting. The answer to the threat of salinity therefore lies in holding the water table at least 2 meters below the surface. In the early days, the appearance of salt often meant abandonment of problem paddocks. There were no economic ways of changing farm management to reverse the rising water tables and soil salinity. All that's changed, but the methods of tackling the problem vary with different areas. Sunraysia's horticultural areas have largely prevented salting by tile drainage. In the Goulburn Valley, the lack of surface drainage is the biggest problem, with the largest rises in the water table occurring during wet periods. While in the Kerrang and Swan Hill districts, it's a question of living with the salt. The demonstration of farm management systems to cope with saline conditions became the function of the community-owned research farm in the late 1950s. This farm has become the focal point for many valuable demonstrations. With the increasing understanding of the causes and effects of salinity, farmers have started to tackle the problem on their own farms. Two major industrial revolutions have helped all these farmers improve their water management. The first revolution is in earth movement. Bigger and more powerful four-wheel drive machinery in the 70s and 80s has literally enabled mountains to be moved. And this, now combined with the laser grader, enabled major changes in layout to be made quickly and precisely. In the first 5 years of laser grading, some 30% of the irrigation land in the Kerrang region and 25% in the Shepparton region has been levelled. The second simultaneous revolution came with the computer. Design jobs which used to take hours to complete now only take seconds to do, once the figures are in the computer. It has allowed the realization of farm plans and designs which could hardly be achieved with older, more cumbersome equipment. Whole farms can be redesigned based on a sound agricultural management plan. This approach contrasts sharply with the old paddock-by-paddock plans and has had pleasing results for many farmers.
When laser grading equipment became available, we drew up a master plan and got into the bigger equipment. We've got the tractor and the laser grader and in a syndicate with a laser syndicate, and we've, since 1980, we've been working to the master plan. We've laid out about 75% of the home farm now is laser graded. You probably use just as much water per year. You use less water per irrigation, but you do more irrigations per season, and you get a dramatic increase in your control of water and the increase in the growth of grass. So you get an increase in your productivity with your cattle.
In orchards, the installation of improved application techniques, such as under-tree sprinklers and irrigation scheduling, has increased the efficiency of water used. These systems ensure that only enough water is applied to meet the plant's needs. The results of this approach have been pleasing. Farmers are obviously keen to counter the problems of high water tables and soil salinity. The results of whole farm planning are outstanding incentives. In several places in northern Victoria, farmers and local communities have bought or rented land to enable the Department of Agriculture and Rural Affairs to continue its research. The Rural Water Commission has also been very active in this field, assisting in the design criteria for whole farm plans. To help control the water table, many community projects have been undertaken. Government-sponsored groundwater pumping has achieved good control of the water table. Also, over 1,000 groundwater pumps have been installed by individual farmers in the Goulburn Valley. These use groundwater for irrigation, which can increase the potential of their farms while helping to control the regional water table. The effect of lowering the water table in salty areas can be dramatic.
The water table dropping brought immediate response, and we found in the case of the paddock behind me, even after the laser grading and the heavy gypsum and super and the salt tolerant clovers and ryegrasses, nothing happened except to make it a lot easier to irrigate. But as far as response from growth, we achieved almost nil, and then within the space of 12 months of dropping the water table, as you can see behind me, the paddock's now almost totally covered in millet and salt-tolerant clovers.
The Research Institute at Tatura has a large team of researchers working on salinity. The work aims to increase the productive value of saline groundwater and to give farmers the widest possible range of options in dealing with saline water. Tolerance of pasture and crop species towards salt and the use of gypsum to correct structural deficiencies of soils under irrigation are two important projects. Not everything can be achieved at once. and the continued success of recent efforts to improve irrigated land and to lower the water table requires continued public support. The value of irrigated produce in Victoria has always been high. It represents about 25% of all agricultural production, yet it is produced on only 4% of our agricultural land. Indirectly, irrigated agriculture is responsible for the standard of living of a large section of Victoria's population. Progressive centres like Mildura, Shepparton and Kerrang rely heavily on the good management of surrounding irrigation farms. Farmers and citizens of the irrigation areas have recognised the need to combat salinity and to improve the productivity of much of the land. Their efforts have been backed by research and extension in many centres. Well-managed irrigation is the backbone of many communities.
Well, in my mind, if you use your, let your imagination run riot for a moment and just try and imagine the Murray Valley, the whole of the Murray Valley without the weirs, take out Dartmouth and Hume and all the weirs down the Murray system, you wouldn't have an irrigation system. Therefore, you wouldn't have a dairy system, dairy industry. You wouldn't have the people who control the irrigation system. And if you knock out all those wages, you'd probably knock out every second school teacher and probably almost every other portion of every bank. And probably with that multiplying effect, you'd be lucky if you had 25% of the population left in the Murray Valley.
The mind could boggle at such a fantastic prospect. But the reality is different. The problems of high water tables and associated salting are not yet a thing of the past. Yet the trends have already been reversed. There's the new methods of water management, and there's the enthusiasm of the farming community. All this ensures well-planned irrigation of its future in the supply of the foods we take so easily for granted.